Billionaire accuses black maid of beating his daughter, but the girl's words stun the court. I never touched her, please believe me. The words tore through the courtroom like a wound opened in silence. A raw cry, a desperate plea. Alana Reyes gripped the polished oak of the defendant's table, her dark hands trembling. Her chest heaved as though the very air was pressing against her lungs. Her voice shook, her throat closing in panic. Her eyes, wide, wet, terrified, searched for a sliver of mercy in a room where mercy had already drowned. The courtroom erupted. Murmurs swelled into snarls. Faces twisted into disgust. Monster child beater. She should burn for what she did. The words stung, they clawed at her ears like sharp blades. Strangers who had never spoken her name before this day now cursed her existence. Her knees wobbled, but she didn't fall. She couldn't, she thought of her Lily. Her Lily. Not by blood but by love. Across the room, the plaintiff's table gleamed with power. Crystal earrings, a flawless pearl necklace. Veronica Alcott sat like a queen, her lips curled in a smile so faint yet so sharp it could cut skin. She leaned closer to the man beside her. Drag this out, Richard, and she'll spin more lies, she whispered. Her voice carried the poison of control. For the child's sake, end this. Richard Alcott, billionaire, real estate mogul, titan of Dallas wealth, didn't look at her, but his body betrayed him. His jaw hardened, his shoulders stiffened as though her touch welded him in place. Alana saw it. She always saw it. The way Veronica's hand brushed his, the way her nails pressed with just enough force to remind him who held the reins. Her breath hitched, her throat tightened with fear. Richard, she cried out, her voice breaking into sobs, please look at me. For a moment his eyes faltered. For a fleeting second, memory flickered in his gaze. The soft laughter of his daughter. The gentle lullabies that floated through the mansion halls. Alana rocking little Lily to sleep when work had kept him away. But then Veronica's hand slid over his again. Her nails dug deeper, reminding him of the story she had written for him. Richard's voice turned to stone. You betrayed me, his eyes hardened. My daughter had bruises on her face, and you expect me to believe that was an accident? You, of all people, laid a hand on her. No, Alana screamed, the word cracking into shards. That's not true. Her sob shook her whole frame. I was with Lily that night. Ask Mrs. Peterson, the neighbor. Ask the cashier at the store. We baked cookies. She laughed. She danced. She was happy. Richard, you know me. You've seen me with her for 3 years. I could never hurt her. But the prosecutor pounced, his voice cold, precise, merciless. Your Honor, enough of these theatrics. The photographs tell the truth. The father's testimony speaks for itself. The child's word is clear. The evidence is undeniable. Alana shook her head violently. They're lies, all lies, she shouted. Her words tumbled fast, frantic. The bruises were painted. I have receipts. I was at the store. I made dinner. Lily giggled all night. Please ask the neighbors, ask her teacher, ask anyone who's seen us together. The courtroom swirled in noise. Gasps, murmurs. The gavel slammed. Order, order in the court. But Alana's voice was drowned in the sea of accusation. And then a whisper. So soft, so faint, only the closest could hear. Daddy. It came from Lily. Her small body curled beside her father, her voice barely above breath. Richard bent down, his face close to hers. It's okay, sweetheart, he murmured, his tone gentle now protective. Veronica's nails dug harder into his skin, her smile deepening. She had planned every move. The painted bruises. The whispered threats to Lily. The careful twisting of Richard's doubt. She had choreographed this moment like a symphony. And Alana was the instrument being shattered. Alana's body trembled. She lifted her eyes toward the child she had loved more than her own life. Lily, she whispered, broken. But Lily's gaze dropped, she stared at her small shoes, her lips pressed shut. Alana's world cracked. Not because Lily didn't speak, but because she knew why. The trial began like a storm. The prosecution unveiled photographs, dark bruises smudged across porcelain skin. They laid out testimonies lined neatly like weapons. A doctor's report. The father's accusations. The child's silence. The defense had little to show. Receipts, witnesses, neighbors. But against the gleam of power, the truth felt small. Alana's attorney tried to argue. Tried to weave facts into armor. But every word was drowned by Veronica's smirk and Richard's hardened jaw. The jury shifted in their seats. Some whispered. Some frowned. But none looked at Alana as if she were human. And through it all, Lily sat silent. Her little hands gripping her dress, her face pale, her eyes glassy. Alana's heart ached. She wanted to scream, to run to her, to hold her and say, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." But the court was a cage, and love had no voice here. When recess was called, the room spilled into chatter. Reporters rushed toward the doors. Spectators lingered with glares. Alana sat frozen. Her breath shallow. Her hands cold. In the corner, Veronica leaned into Richard again, her voice a whisper only for him. "You see how she plays it? Tears, lies, desperation, but truth always stands, and the truth is she hurt your little girl." Richard nodded stiffly. His eyes were weary, clouded with doubt, but Veronica's grip never loosened. Alana's gaze met his for a brief second. And in that instant she saw it. The war inside him. The flicker of memory against the force of manipulation. But flickers were fragile. And Veronica's hand was steady. Alana bowed her head. Her tears fell onto the wood before her. She whispered only to herself, "Please God, don't let Lily carry this weight, don't let them break her." And deep inside, a seed of fight still burned. Because Alana Reyes knew the truth. She hadn't hurt Lily. She hadn't left those bruises. And one day the truth would come alive. Even if it tore the world apart to get there. The courtroom emptied slowly, the heavy oak doors creaking shut behind the last of the spectators. Only Alana remained seated, her hands still gripping the edge of the defendant's table as though letting go would mean she'd sink into nothingness. Her lawyer Daniel Hayes touched her arm gently. "Alana," he whispered. She didn't move. He crouched beside her. "You have to breathe," he said softly, "you're going to pass out." Alana blinked. The world returned in fragments, buzzing lights above her, the distant hum of voices in the hallway, the cold taste of fear on her tongue. "I can't win this," she whispered. "They hate me already." Daniel's face softened. He was a young attorney, not rich. Not polished like the prosecution's star. His suit was frayed at the edges, his tie a shade too dull, but his eyes burned with conviction. "You can," he said firmly, "because you're innocent, and innocence is stronger than lies if we can prove it." Her lips trembled, but she won't speak, she's scared. He didn't have to ask who. Lily's silence was the shadow over everything. The child who could save her. The child who was too terrified to open her mouth. In the hallway outside, Veronica Alcott's heels clicked against marble like a metronome. Sharp, cold, calculated. She guided Richard through the crowd of murmuring onlookers. He walked stiffly, his broad shoulders tense, his jaw locked in stone. "Richard," she whispered, her voice like silk wrapping barbed wire, "you can't waver now, the jury watches everything. If you falter, she wins." He nodded, but his eyes were elsewhere. They were distant, haunted by images he couldn't silence. Alana's laughter in the kitchen with Lily. The soft hum of bedtime songs. The trust in his daughter's eyes whenever Alana tucked her into bed. Veronica's grip tightened on his arm. "Stay strong," she urged, "for Lily." But in her smile there was no warmth, only possession. That night Alana sat alone in her small apartment. It was a place too quiet now, too hollow. Every corner carried echoes of Lily's giggles. The little blanket she had left behind still lay folded on the couch. Alana picked it up, pressing it to her face, breathing in the faint scent of strawberry shampoo. Her tears soaked the fabric. She remembered the day Lily called her mama for the first time. It wasn't planned, it wasn't forced. They had been baking cookies, flour smudged across both their cheeks, and Lily, with a grin too wide for her small face, had squealed, "You're the best mama ever." Alana had frozen. Her heart had burst and broken all at once. Because she wasn't her mama. She was just the maid. And yet, in that moment, she was everything to that little girl. Now they wanted to turn her into a monster. Now they wanted to erase every memory and paint her as a stranger who brought pain. She clutched the blanket tighter. "They won't take this from me," she whispered into the empty room. The next morning, court resumed. The prosecution paraded witnesses, family doctors, private tutors, even a chauffeur who claimed to have seen the bruises days before Alana was arrested. Their words stacked like bricks in a wall, trapping Alana inside. Each testimony another dagger. But Daniel stood, refusing to let the tide drown them. "Did you personally witness my client harm the child?" he asked, his voice calm. "No," the chauffeur admitted. "Did you?" he asked the tutor. "No." "Did you?" he pressed the doctor. "No, I was told by the parents." One by one, the cracks in the wall began to show. But the jury still shifted uneasily. The photographs were powerful. The silence of the child devastating. Then came Mrs. Peterson. She was Alana's neighbor, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a voice that carried strength. She took the stand with a steady stride. On the night in question, Daniel asked, "What did you see?" Mrs. Peterson adjusted her glasses. "I saw Alana and Lily in the kitchen window. They were baking. I remember because I could hear their laughter from my porch." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. "And did you notice any signs of distress from the child?" "None," Mrs. Peterson said firmly. "That little girl looked as happy as could be." The prosecution rose, ready to shred her words. "Mrs. Peterson, you're fond of Ms. Reyes, aren't you?" "Of course, she's a good neighbor." "And you'd do anything to protect her?" Mrs. Peterson's eyes narrowed. "I'd do anything to protect the truth." The jury stirred. For the first time, a seed of doubt glimmered. But as Mrs. Peterson stepped down, Veronica leaned close to Richard. "She's playing them," she hissed. Her nails dug into his wrist. "Don't let her win." Richard swallowed hard. He glanced at Alana. She looked small, fragile, broken, but in her eyes he saw something that unsettled him. Not guilt. Not fear. But love. When Lily was called to the stand, the air shifted. Every breath in the courtroom seemed to pause. The little girl shuffled forward, her hands clutched together, her dress wrinkled from nervous fingers. She climbed into the witness chair, her legs dangling above the floor. Her big brown eyes darted around, landing finally on her father. Richard smiled gently. "It's okay, sweetheart." But Veronica's hand pressed into his arm again, harder this time. The prosecutor stepped forward, voice soft, deliberate. "Lily, can you tell us what happened that night?" The room was silent. So silent the hum of the lights above seemed deafening. Lily's lips parted. She glanced at Alana. Alana's heart stopped. But then her eyes dropped. Her small voice whispered, She hurt me." Gasps filled the room. The prosecutor nodded, satisfied. "Thank you, Lily, that's all." Alana's chest caved. Her vision blurred. Her world collapsed. But she didn't hate Lily. She couldn't. Because she saw it. The way the child's hands trembled. The way her voice cracked. The way her eyes darted, not with memory but with fear. Fear of the woman who sat beside her father, her smile sharp as knives. Veronica. When court adjourned, Daniel found Alana trembling in the corner of the hallway. "She lied," Alana whispered, "but not because she wanted to. They've scared her. She's just a child." Daniel's jaw tightened. "We need proof, something solid to show the jury this is all orchestrated." Alana nodded weakly. But inside something fierce stirred. She would not let Veronica win. She would not let Lily carry this life forever. Love was stronger than fear. And Alana Reyes would fight until her last breath to prove it. That night in the quiet of her apartment she prayed. Not for herself, but for Lily. And in the silence that followed, a thought struck her sharp and sudden. Receipts. Cameras. She remembered the grocery store where she and Lily had gone that night. She remembered the laughter in the aisle, the flour bags they bought, the chocolate chips. Stores had cameras. Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone. "Daniel," she whispered, voice urgent. "The store, they might still have footage of Lily that night, smiling safe with me." There was silence on the line, then Daniel's voice alive with sudden hope. "Alana, if we can get that footage, everything changes." For the first time since her nightmare began, Alana felt something bloom in her chest. Not despair. Not fear. But fire. The fight was only beginning. Alana barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, Lily's trembling voice echoed in her mind. She hurt me." It cut like a blade, not because the words were true, but because she knew the child hadn't spoken them freely. Fear had done the speaking, fear and Veronica's shadow. When dawn broke, Alana sat by her window, the grocery store receipt clenched in her hand. The ink was smudged, but the date and time were clear. It was her lifeline. At exactly 9:42 p.m., she and Lily had been at Mason's Market, buying sugar, flour, and chocolate chips. If the cameras still held that moment, they could show Lily's joy, show the truth. Daniel met her outside the courthouse that morning, his tie crooked, his eyes burning with determination. "You called Mason?" he asked. "They keep security footage for 30 days, Alana whispered. "It's been 28. Daniel's expression tightened. "Then we don't have a minute to waste." The store was small, nestled between a laundromat and a diner. Alana's chest tightened as soon as she saw it. Memories struck her, Lily tugging her hand at the candy aisle, giggling at the squeaky shopping cart. Inside, the store smelled faintly of coffee and dust. A man in his 50s stood behind the counter, wiping it with a rag. His name tag read Carl. Daniel approached him with calm authority. "Sir, we're here about security footage. Mason's Market 2 weeks ago, the night of the 12th. Carl frowned. "Footage, we usually only pull that if there's a theft." Daniel slid a card across the counter. "This is a legal matter, very serious. My client's future depends on it." Carl looked at Alana, his gaze softening. Her face was pale, her eyes pleading. "I remember you," he muttered. "You were here with a little girl, she was dancing in the aisle." Alana's throat closed. "Yes," she whispered. Carl sighed. "Let me check the system." The minutes dragged like hours. Alana clutched the counter, her heart slamming against her ribs. Finally, Carl returned with a flash drive. "I pulled the feed," he said. "Here, but you didn't get it from me, understood?" Daniel nodded. "Understood." Alana nearly collapsed with relief. She held the drive as though it were treasure, because to her it was. But Veronica was not blind. That afternoon, as court recessed for lunch, she intercepted Richard outside the grand marble steps. Her smile was fixed, her tone sweet as poison. "She's desperate," Veronica murmured. "She's looking for anything to twist the story." Richard frowned. "What do you mean?" Veronica's eyes glinted. "I have friends, Mason's Market, she's trying to pull footage, but it won't help her. You saw Lily yourself, you saw the bruises." Richard's jaw flexed. He remembered the photographs, the marks on his daughter's porcelain skin. But another memory pressed through, the way Alana used to kneel and tie Lily's shoes before school, the way Lily ran into her arms every evening. "Maybe the footage will show something," he said softly. Veronica's smile faltered. For just a moment her grip slipped. Then she straightened. "Or maybe," she said smoothly, "it will show nothing. Do not let her twist your heart, Richard. Truth is on our side." But her nails dug into his sleeve as though to remind him of his chains. That evening, Daniel set up his laptop in Alana's apartment. They sat side by side, the small flash drive trembling in Alana's fingers. "Ready?" Daniel asked. She nodded. The screen lit up with grainy footage. The timestamp read 9:42 p.m. on the 12th. There she was, Alana, in her worn denim jacket, pushing the cart, and beside her Lily, her little dress swaying as she twirled down the aisle. Her laughter was silent but visible in her wide smile. She grabbed a bag of chocolate chips, tossing it into the cart with dramatic flair. Alana laughed too, ruffling her hair. Alana's tears spilled. "See," she whispered, "she was happy, she was safe." Daniel leaned forward, eyes sharp. "This is it, this is what we need." The next day in court, Daniel rose, holding the flash drive. His voice carried a rare strength. "Your Honor, the defense has obtained new evidence. Security footage from Mason's Market, taken on the night in question. It directly contradicts the claim that Ms. Reyes harmed the child that evening." The prosecutor shot up. "Objection, this footage was not disclosed prior to today." Judge Reynolds raised a hand. "Objection overruled, let's see it." The screen lowered, the footage played. There was Alana and Lily, alive in motion. Laughing, dancing, safe. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Jurors leaned forward, eyes widening. For the first time, Alana felt the weight lift, if only slightly. For the first time, the truth had a voice. But Veronica did not flinch. Her lips curved in the faintest of smiles. Because she knew this battle was not won by truth alone. After court adjourned, Richard stood by the marble steps, his thoughts tangled in chaos. The footage had shaken him. It was real, unedited, his daughter smiling with Alana, no trace of harm. Had he been wrong? Had he let Veronica guide his anger, his grief, his fear? He closed his eyes. Memories flooded him. Alana singing lullabies, Alana holding Lily after nightmares, Alana cooking meals when Veronica never lifted a finger. Doubt spurred like cracks in glass. But then a hand slid into his, smooth, controlling. Richard, Veronica whispered, her tone sharp as a knife hidden in velvet. You saw what she did today. She's desperate. She'll forge anything. She'll lie, cheat, manipulate. Don't let her break us. Richard's lips parted, but no words came. Because deep down, he wasn't sure anymore who was breaking who. That night Alana prayed again. Not for freedom. Not for herself. But for courage. She knew the fight had shifted. The footage was powerful, yes. But Veronica was a serpent skilled in weaving lies, and the jury's hearts were still fragile, still easily swayed. Alana stared at the ceiling, whispering into the darkness. God, give me the strength to endure, for Lily, for the truth. And though silence followed, she felt something stir within her chest. Not hope, not yet. But resolve. The kind of resolve that grows roots deep enough to break stone. Because Alana Reyes knew now. This wasn't just a trial. It was a war. And she wasn't going to lose. The courtroom buzzed with aftershocks of the footage. Jurors whispered behind cautious hands. Reporters outside the doors rattled with questions they weren't allowed to ask inside. Alana sat straighter than she had in weeks. For the first time since the trial began, her chest expanded with something that wasn't fear. The footage was proof. It was light in the dark. But light attracts shadows. Veronica knew that better than anyone. The next morning, she arrived early. Her pearl necklace gleamed, her heels tapping sharp against marble. She carried no papers, no briefcase. She didn't need them. Her weapons were subtler, poison in whispers, doubt in glances, pressure in silence. She slid into her seat beside Richard, brushing his sleeve with delicate fingers. You saw the jury yesterday, she murmured, voice sweet and laced with venom. They're wavering. They'll need to be reminded of the truth. Richard rubbed his temple. His nights had been sleepless. Images warred in his mind, bruises on his daughter's skin, yes, but also the footage of her laughing with Alana. Two truths colliding. Reminded, he repeated. Veronica's lips curved. Exactly, a smile doesn't erase bruises, a laugh doesn't erase violence, don't forget that. Her nails dug lightly into his wrist, a reminder that his weakness belonged to her. When court opened, the prosecution wasted no time. Your Honor, the prosecutor began, while the footage presented yesterday may appear compelling, the state must stress its irrelevance. Abuse can happen after cookies are baked. A child may laugh 1 hour and cry the next. This video proves nothing about the bruises that appeared on Lily Alcott's face. He turned to the jury, his voice low, deliberate. Do not be swayed by theatrics. Bruises don't lie, doctors don't lie, and children, innocent children, don't lie. His words landed heavy, like weights stacked against Alana's chest. Daniel leapt up. Your Honor, this footage is not irrelevant. It directly contradicts the timeline of events given by the prosecution. If Lily was happy, unharmed, and in public view the night they claim she was beaten, then the state's entire foundation begins to crumble. The judge lifted a hand. The jury will determine its relevance. Proceed. But Alana felt the shift. The prosecutor's words had already planted doubt. At recess, Veronica leaned down to Lily, her voice a snake's hiss masked as honey. You did so well yesterday, she cooed. Daddy, so proud of you, but you must stay strong. If you falter, if you change your story, do you know what will happen? Lily's small hands twisted in her lap. What? She whispered. Veronica's smile sharpened. She'll come back, Alana, she'll hurt you again, and this time Daddy won't be able to stop her. Lily's eyes filled with tears. No. Yes, Veronica smoothed the child's hair, her touch cold despite the softness. So when they ask again, you tell the truth, my truth, for Daddy, for your safety. Richard stood nearby, overhearing fragments. His chest tightened. Something about the exchange didn't sit right. The way Lily's shoulders hunched, the way Veronica's smile never reached her eyes. But when he stepped closer, Veronica turned, her mask flawless. "She's scared," she said smoothly. "She needs reassurance." Richard nodded weakly, though unease gnawed at him. That afternoon, Daniel called another witness, the cashier from Mason's Market. The young woman, no older than 20, stood nervously on the stand. "Yes, I remember them," she said. "Alana and the little girl, they bought sugar and flour, the girl was dancing, she even offered me a cookie if I came by their house." The jury chuckled softly, the image of a playful child tugged at their humanity. But then the prosecutor rose, his eyes were sharp, his tone dripping with condescension. "Miss, how many customers do you serve a night?" "Hundreds maybe," she admitted. "And yet you specifically remember one child." "Yes," she stood out. He smirked. "Or perhaps you're standing out now, hopping to help a neighbor, hopping to sway a jury with a convenient memory." The cashier stammered, "No sir, I'm just telling what I saw." "Of course," he turned to the jury. "And yet, even if she laughed at the market, we know what happened after. Don't be distracted by cookies and smiles, remember the bruises." Alana clenched her fists beneath the table. Every truth they brought forward was twisted into smoke. That night, Alana sat in her apartment again, staring at the silent blanket on her couch. "I can't keep up," she whispered to Daniel over the phone. "Every time we show something real, they turn it to dust. How do you fight smoke?" Daniel's voice was steady. "By holding on, by building piece after piece until the smoke clears. We're not done, Alana, not even close." But Alana's heart ached. Because smoke suffocated just as much as fire. Meanwhile, Richard paced his study. His mansion loomed quiet around him, but his mind was loud. The footage haunted him, the witnesses haunted him, and Lily, his daughter, haunted him most of all. He replayed her words in court, "She hurt me." But he also remembered her hesitation, her trembling hands, her eyes darting to Veronica before she spoke. Was his daughter afraid of the wrong person? He poured himself a drink, the glass trembling in his grip. For years, he had trusted Veronica's judgment. She was sharp, decisive, unyielding where he wavered. But what if her sharpness was a blade not against enemies but against them, against Lily, against him? His chest tightened. He wanted to ask Lily, to press her gently, alone. But Veronica was always there, always watching, always pressing her nails into his skin when his doubt grew. And he was tired. So tired. The next day, the prosecutor unveiled a new card. "Your Honor, the state calls Dr. Howard Klein, pediatric specialist." A tall man with silver hair and a calm demeanor stepped forward. "I examined Lily Alcott on the morning after the alleged incident," he said. "Her bruises were consistent with blunt force trauma." "Consistent with abuse?" the prosecutor asked. "Yes." Alana's breath caught. "No," she whispered, shaking her head, "that's not true." Daniel rose quickly. "Doctor, can bruises also be caused by accidents, a fall for example?" "Possibly," the doctor admitted, but these patterns were suspicious, too symmetrical, too deliberate. The words cut deep, the jury frowned, whispering. Daniel pressed on, "And how long had the bruises been there?" "Within 12 hours. So they could not have been present at the grocery store." "Correct, they appeared later." Gasps echoed, the timeline twisted again, right back into Veronica's hands. Alana felt the ground slip beneath her. The footage had given her hope, but now it seemed turned against her. When court adjourned, Veronica's smirk widened. She leaned close to Richard as they exited. "You see, even science is on our side, don't doubt me again." Richard said nothing. But deep inside, the seed of doubt still grew. Because he remembered Lily's silence. And silence, he realized, could speak louder than words. That night, Alana sat at her table, hands buried in her hair. She thought of Lily's small voice. She thought of Veronica's cold smile. She thought of the jury, swayed by smoke and mirrors. Her tears fell hot against her palms. "Please, God," she whispered, "if there's a way, show me how to save her, show me how to save us both." And in that darkness, she resolved one thing. She would not wait for miracles. She would fight harder. Because the truth was fragile, but it was hers. And no matter how long it took, she would drag it into the light. Even if it killed her. The night stretched long, but Alana could not sleep. She sat at her kitchen table, the same table where Lily once smeared cookie dough across her little arms, laughing so hard her chest heaved. Now that laughter was only a ghost in the air. Alana's fingers trembled as she traced the smudged grocery receipt. Proof had been found, but it was not enough. The bruises still clung to her like chains. When dawn broke, Daniel called. His voice carried exhaustion but also a hard edge of determination. "Alana," he said, "I've been thinking all night, something doesn't add up." Her breath hitched. "The doctor." "Exactly. The bruises appeared within 12 hours, but they weren't visible on the footage, which means they showed up later. The prosecution wants the jury to believe you caused them in private. But if we're right?" "They weren't real," Alana whispered, the thought cutting through her like a blade. "Or someone else caused them." Silence followed, then Daniel said, steady as stone, "We need to find out how." Later that morning, Daniel arrived at Alana's apartment carrying 2 worn leather folders. He dropped them on the table with a heavy thud. "Medical records," he explained. "I had a contact pull everything the prosecution submitted, every doctor's note, every lab, every photo." Alana's stomach twisted as he flipped the files open. There were photographs of Lily's small face blotched with purples and yellows, her arms bearing dark shadows of bruises. Alana's hands flew to her mouth. "They look so real," she whispered. Daniel nodded grimly. "Too real, perfectly symmetrical like the doctor said. That's what caught me. Children fall, children bruise, but these, they look staged." Alana's eyes darted to him. "Staged? How would anyone?" He leaned closer, lowering his voice as though the walls themselves might betray them. "Makeup, bruise kits, they're used in films, theater, even medical training. A skilled hand could fool anyone." The thought made her stomach lurch. "You think Veronica?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "I wouldn't put anything past her." Alana pressed her palms into the table, fighting the tremor in her chest. If it were true, then Lily had been paraded in front of doctors with painted skin, her innocence twisted into a weapon. Daniel slid a photo closer. "Look here, the edges of the bruise, see how uniform the color is? Real bruises bloom, they change shades as blood disperses. This one looks painted. No mottling, no irregularity." Alana squinted, her heart pounding. For the first time she saw it, not a wound but a mask. "Can we prove it?" she whispered. Daniel's eyes burned. "We're going to try." 2 days later, Daniel pulled Alana into the back booth of a dingy cafe near downtown. He slid a folder across the table. "I've been digging," he said. "Veronica has ties to a cosmetics company. One of their artists freelances in makeup effects, bruises, scars, wounds for training hospitals. Guess who's on their payroll the week Lily's photos were taken?" Alana's eyes widened. "Who?" He flipped the page to reveal a photo of a woman in her 30s, hair dyed platinum, lips painted dark. Her name, Claudia Voss. She specializes in medical makeup, and 3 days before Lily's so-called examination, she billed Veronica Alcott directly. Alana's breath caught. "A makeup artist." Daniel nodded. "If we can connect her to the bruises, Veronica's entire case collapses." Alana's pulse raced, but fear clawed at her. "And if she refuses to talk?" Daniel's smile was grim. "Then we'll make her." The address led them to a loft on the edge of the arts district, its windows streaked with paint. Inside, canvases leaned against the walls, splattered with colors. In the corner, a vanity mirror glowed, scattered with brushes and palettes. Claudia opened the door with a cigarette dangling from her lips. She eyed Daniel and Alana with suspicion. "What do you want?" Daniel's voice was calm but firm. "We're here about Veronica Alcott." Claudia smirked, blowing smoke into the air. "She pays well, that's all I'll say." Alana stepped forward, her voice trembling with both fear and fury. "You painted bruises on a child." Claudia froze, the smirk faltered. "I don't know what you're talking about." Alana's eyes burned. "You do, you covered Lily's perfect skin with lies, you let them twist her against me." For a moment, Claudia's face softened, then hardened again. "I don't betray clients, especially not rich ones." Daniel reached into his folder and pulled out an invoice. "We already have proof you were hired. If you don't cooperate, I'll subpoena your records, every payment, every photo. Perjury won't save you when the truth comes out." Claudia's jaw clenched. She flicked ash into a tray, packing the floor. Finally, she muttered, "I didn't know it was for a court case." She said it was for a domestic violence awareness project, a training portfolio. Alana gasped, "You saw Lily?" Claudia looked away. "I didn't ask questions." The girl was nervous, but kids are always nervous. "I did the job, applied the bruises, took the photos. Veronica handled the rest." Daniel leaned in. "Would you testify to that?" Claudia shook her head violently. "No, you don't understand. Veronica's powerful. If I cross her, I'll lose everything." Alana's hands clenched. "And what about Lily? What about the child who's being forced to lie?" Claudia's eyes flickered, guilt seeping through her hardened shell. She crushed the cigarette into the tray, her fingers trembling. I need time," she whispered, "time to think." Daniel nodded slowly. "We don't have much. The trial is moving fast. Think carefully, Claudia. A little girl's life depends on it." They left her loft in silence. Outside, the city roared with traffic, but Alana felt only the pounding of her heart. "We have her," Daniel murmured. "If we can get her to testify, it changes everything." But Alana knew Veronica would not let it be so simple. The next morning, as Alana and Daniel approached the courthouse, a sleek black car slid to the curb. Veronica stepped out, her heels striking pavement like blades. Her pearl necklace glinted in the sun. "Ms. Reyes," she purred, her smile venom-sweet, "I hear you've been snooping in places you don't belong." Alana froze, her blood turning cold. Veronica's gaze cut sharp. "Claudia is loyal, she won't betray me, and if you think parading circus acts into court will save you, you're mistaken. This jury believes bruises more than smiles, remember that." Daniel stepped forward, blocking her path. "Threats won't hold forever, Mrs. Alcott." Veronica leaned closer, her perfume thick, suffocating. "No, but fear will." Her eyes locked on Alana's. "And I intend to keep your little Lily very afraid." She walked away, her laughter soft but razor-edged. Alana's hands shook. "She knows," she whispered. Daniel's jaw hardened. "Then we move faster, before she silences Claudia for good." That evening, Alana couldn't sit still. She paced her apartment, clutching Lily's blanket, every fiber of her being screamed to protect that child, to free her from Veronica's grip. Daniel called close to midnight. "I've convinced Claudia to meet again tomorrow morning, but she's terrified. We need to give her a reason to stand with us." Alana's eyes filled with fire. "Then I'll go, I'll beg if I have to." The next day, they met Claudia in a quiet park. She looked worn, shadows under her eyes, her hands shaking as she lit another cigarette. "I can't," she whispered. "Veronica has connections, judges, lawyers, even cops. If I testify, I'm finished." Alana stepped forward, her voice breaking. "And what about Lily? Do you want her to grow up believing she was hurt by someone who loved her? Do you want her to live with that lie forever?" Claudia's eyes glistened. She looked away, smoke swirling between them. Alana's voice trembled but grew stronger. "You have a choice, to protect your career or to protect a child. What kind of woman do you want to be remembered as?" Silence stretched, then Claudia dropped the cigarette, crushing it beneath her shoe. "I'll testify," she whispered, "but you'll have to protect me." Daniel exhaled, relief flooding his face. "We will." Alana's knees nearly buckled. For the first time, a true weapon lay in their hands. That night, Alana sat by her window, clutching the blanket close. She thought of Lily's eyes, wide with fear. She thought of Claudia's trembling confession. She thought of Veronica, sharp and venomous but finally vulnerable. The bruises were lies, painted lies, and now they had the proof. Her tears fell freely, not of despair this time but of fierce hope. She whispered into the darkness, her voice steady. "Hold on, Lily, I'm coming for you, and I won't stop until you're free." The war was not over, but at last, Alana Reyes had found a blade sharp enough to cut through Veronica's smoke. And when the truth came, it would not whisper. It would roar. The courthouse smelled of varnish and stale coffee, but that morning it carried something sharper: anticipation. Daniel straightened his tie, his hands steady though his pulse hammered. Beside him, Alana smoothed her skirt again and again as if the fabric might anchor her shaking nerves. "Are you ready?" Daniel asked quietly. Alana nodded though her throat was dry. "Ready or not, this is it." When Claudia Voss stepped into the courtroom, silence rippled through the gallery. She looked smaller without her makeup armor, her platinum hair pulled into a tight bun, her lips bare. she clutched her purse like a shield. Veronica's eyes widened just for a flicker, but then her smile sharpened, like a snake baring fangs. The clerk swore Claudia in. She raised her hand, her fingers trembling. "Ms. Voss," Daniel began, his voice measured, "what do you do for a living?" "I'm a makeup artist," Claudia said. Her voice wavered, but she held steady. "Specializing in medical simulation, creating realistic injuries for training hospitals, films, and projects." Daniel nodded. "And were you recently hired by Veronica Alcott?" "Yes." "For what purpose?" Claudia swallowed. Her eyes darted toward Veronica, who sat perfectly still, pearl necklace gleaming. "She told me it was for a domestic violence awareness project. She wanted realistic photographs. She brought her stepdaughter, Lily, for me to apply the bruises on." A gasp tore through the courtroom. Even the judge's brows furrowed. Daniel stepped closer. "You're saying the photographs submitted as medical evidence in this case were staged?" "Yes," Claudia whispered, her voice breaking. "I created them, they weren't real." The gallery buzzed like a hive of angry bees. Jurors leaned forward, their faces pale. Daniel spread the photographs across the evidence table. "Your Honor, for the record, these are the same images introduced by the prosecution. Ms. Voss, are you confirming that these bruises were painted by you?" Claudia nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, I didn't know it was for court. I thought it was for training material. I never would have." "Objection!" The prosecutor shot to his feet, his face crimson. "This is outrageous. We demand proof beyond a witness's shaky word. She is clearly compromised." But Daniel was ready. He lifted an invoice and held it high. "Your Honor, this is the billing record. Claudia Voss invoiced Veronica Alcott 3 days before the supposed medical exam. The payment was made directly from Mrs. Alcott's private account. The timeline aligns exactly with when these bruises appeared." The judge adjusted his glasses, studying the paper. The weight of silence pressed against the walls. The prosecutor sneered. "Even if this were true, we have a licensed physician who confirmed those bruises as consistent with abuse." Daniel turned back to Claudia. "Ms. Voss, were you trained to create injuries realistic enough to deceive medical professionals?" Claudia nodded. "Yes, that's the purpose of medical simulation makeup." A crack split through the courtroom. The prosecution's foundation shook. And then Veronica moved. She stood, slow and deliberate, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "Your Honor," she said smoothly, her voice liquid poison, "this is a circus, a desperate attempt to derail justice. I deny every word of this fabrication." She turned to Claudia, her smile cold. "And I pity a woman who invents stories for attention." Claudia flinched as if struck. Daniel pressed forward. "Ms. Voss, did Veronica Alcott threaten you to keep silent?" Claudia's lips parted, but no sound came. Her eyes darted toward Veronica, who tilted her head, a silent reminder of power. Alana couldn't breathe. If Claudia broke now, the truth would collapse. But then Claudia lifted her chin, tears streaking her face. "Yes, she told me if I spoke, she would ruin me." The gallery erupted. The judge slammed his gavel. "Order." But the damage was done. Veronica's mask cracked, if only for a second, as whispers of fraud, lies, and manipulation swept through the courtroom. When recess was called, reporters swarmed outside the courthouse doors. But inside, tension coiled tighter. Alana clutched Daniel's arm. "She did it," she told them. The jury heard it. Daniel nodded, but his jaw was tight. "Yes, which means Veronica won't hold back anymore. She'll retaliate." They were right. That night, Claudia's studio windows shattered under the force of a brick. Spray paint screamed across the walls, liar, whore, fraud. By morning, the news had spread through whispers. Claudia didn't show up for the next day of trial. Alana's stomach churned as she sat in court, her eyes darting toward the empty witness bench. Veronica sat tall, her pearl necklace gleaming like armor, her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. When the judge asked for the defense's next witness, Daniel hesitated. "Your Honor, we request a brief delay. Our witness has been intimidated." "Objection." The prosecutor snapped. "Baseless accusations." But the judge's frown lingered. "Very well, court will adjourn for the day, but Mr. Hayes, you will have your witness tomorrow or risk forfeiting her testimony." The gavel fell. That evening, Daniel and Alana found Claudia curled in her loft, her face pale, her hands trembling as she clutched a shattered picture frame. "They came last night," she whispered. "I don't even know who, my phone keeps buzzing with threats. They said they'll bury me if I walk back into that courtroom." Alana knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders. "Claudia, please, you already told the truth once. If you stop now, Veronica wins, Lily loses." Claudia's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand, they'll destroy me, I'll lose everything." Alana's voice broke. "And what about Lily? She's a child, trapped in lies she doesn't understand. You're her only way out. Please, don't let her grow up believing she was hurt by someone who loved her." For a long moment, silence pressed between them, then Claudia exhaled, shaking. "I'll do it, I'll testify again, but I need protection." Daniel nodded. "We'll get it. I'll petition the judge first thing tomorrow." The next morning, the courthouse felt different. The jury filed in, eyes sharp, restless. The judge's gavel rang out. "Mr. Hayes, do you have your witness?" Daniel rose. "Yes, Your Honor, and we request protective measures for Ms. Voss. She has received credible threats connected to her testimony." The judge's frown deepened. "Request granted, bailiffs ensure her safety." Claudia entered, escorted by 2 deputies. Her steps shook, but her chin was higher than yesterday. Daniel guided her through testimony again, her words steady this time, her eyes fixed on the jury. She painted the story piece by piece, the makeup kits, the false bruises, the lies. The prosecutor attacked, but every objection seemed thinner, every counterargument weaker. The jurors watched, lips tight, eyes burning with suspicion, of Veronica. And Veronica sat perfectly still, her smile carved like marble, but Alana saw it, the flicker in her eyes, the tremor in her fingers, a predator forced into a corner. When court adjourned that day, Alana stepped into the sunlight with something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. But Daniel's warning lingered in her ear. "She won't stop now, she'll come at us harder, vicious, we need to be ready." And Alana knew he was right. Because Veronica Alcott had built her life on smoke and mirrors, and when those mirrors shattered, the glass cut deep. And she was about to bleed. Richard Alcott's voice echoed off the marble walls of his study, sharp enough to slice through glass. "You let this happen, Veronica. You let a makeup artist walk into court and destroy the evidence." His fist slammed against the desk. The oak groaned under the weight. Veronica didn't flinch. She stood near the fireplace, her pearl necklace catching the glow of the flames. Her poise was deliberate, a calculated performance, but under her manicured calm, something in her jaw twitched. "She won't last," Veronica said flatly. "Claudia is weak, you saw how she trembled, pressure breaks people like her, and the defense, they're clinging to scraps." Richard spun on her, his face was red, veins ridged across his temple. "Scraps, that woman sat in front of 12 jurors and said our evidence was fake. Do you understand what that means for me, for this family, for my company?" His voice cracked on the last word. For the first time, Veronica noticed the sweat on his brow. Richard wasn't thinking about Lily, not really. He was thinking about headlines, stock dips, his empire's shine. Veronica crossed the room slowly, heels clicking like clock hands. "Then we push harder. If Claudia Voss is their weapon, we disarm her. If Alana Reyes is their martyr, we ruin her. And if Lily resists, then we remind her where her loyalties lie." Richard's chest heaved. He stared at his wife, seeing something in her that unsettled him, but fear and pride were stronger than doubt. He nodded once, curt. "Do what you have to." Alana was still awake when the phone rang after midnight. She had been packing the living room, Lily's blanket clutched against her chest as if the faded fabric might steady her heartbeat. The ringtone cut like a blade through the silence. She snatched it up. "Hello." The voice was low, rough, and unrecognizable. "Stay away from court. If you love your daughter, you'll keep your mouth shut." The line went dead. Alana froze, the phone trembling in her grip. Her breath came shallow, her chest tightening. Her daughter, they knew how to find her daughter. Moments later, she was dialing Daniel. He picked up, groggy but alert within seconds. "They called me," Alana whispered, her voice shook. "They threatened Lily." Daniel's tone hardened instantly. "I'm on my way, don't open the door for anyone." By the time he arrived, Alana's apartment lights were blazing. She sat curled on the couch, tears streaking her face. Daniel crouched in front of her, gripping her hands. They're trying to break you, that's all this is. Alana shook her head fiercely. No, they mean it. Veronica means it, I know she does. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then we'll fight harder. I'll get a protective order tomorrow, but you need to hold on, Alana, they want you terrified. Her lips trembled. It's working. The next morning, chaos landed on Richard Alcott's front lawn. Reporters swarmed, though they weren't allowed in court. Somehow, word had leaked. Whispers of fake bruises, staged photos, fraud. The headlines weren't screaming yet, but the embers were lit. Inside the mansion, Lily sat curled on her bed, hugging a stuffed bear. Veronica entered without knocking. Her smile was sharp, stretched too wide. Why aren't you dressed yet, darling? We have visitors today. Lily's eyes flickered up, wide and uncertain. I don't want visitors. Veronica sat beside her, smoothing the girl's hair with icy precision. Sometimes we don't get what we want. Sometimes we do what's necessary for family. Do you understand? The child nodded faintly. Veronica leaned closer, her voice a venomous whisper. If you say the wrong things in court again, Lily, people will believe terrible things about your father, about you. Do you want to be the reason your family falls apart? Lily's lips quivered, her little hands clutched the bear tighter. Good girl, Veronica whispered, pressing a kiss to the child's temple. Now smile for the cameras. Daniel wasn't surprised when his office door flew open and Richard Alcott himself stormed inside. You're destroying my family, Richard snapped, slamming a fist on the desk. You're dragging my daughter into circus games. Daniel didn't rise, he leaned back in his chair, measured and calm. I'm defending an innocent woman. If that destroys your family, maybe you should look at who's swinging the wrecking ball. Richard's jaw tightened. Drop it. Settle, name your price. Daniel's laugh was humorless. You think this is about money. It's always about money. Richard leaned forward, voice low and dangerous. You don't know who you're up against. Walk away or you'll regret it. Daniel's eyes burned. No, Mr. Alcott, the only one who'll regret this is the person who staged abuse on a child to ruin another woman's life. Richard slammed out of the office, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. But Daniel knew this wasn't just about court anymore. Veronica and Richard were escalating, and people who had everything to lose were the most dangerous kind. 2 nights later, Alana returned home from a late meeting with Daniel to find her apartment door ajar. Her breath hitched, she pushed it open slowly. The living room was in shambles, drawers pulled out, cushions slashed. On the wall in dripping black paint, a single word screamed at her. Thief. Alana staggered back, bile rising in her throat. Whoever had done this hadn't taken anything, they had sent a message. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number again. She forced herself to answer. You don't belong here, the voice hissed. Go back to the gutter you crawled out of, or next time it won't just be paint. Alana dropped the phone, her legs buckled beneath her. The next morning, Daniel stormed into court demanding protective custody for both Alana and Claudia. The judge granted it reluctantly, assigning deputies to monitor them. But the damage was done. Alana sat in the courtroom, hollow-eyed, trembling. Claudia, too, looked frayed, her nerves stretched to breaking. And Veronica, she glowed, every pearl, every hair in place, the picture of untouchable elegance. The trial pressed on, but the air had shifted. Jurors whispered behind tight lips, the gallery buzzed with speculation. The case was no longer just about bruises, it was about power. That afternoon, Alana received a text from an unknown number, a photo. It was Lily, taken through her bedroom window, her small face framed in the glass, pale and frightened. Beneath it, a message. Next time she won't be alone. Alana dropped the phone with a scream. Daniel grabbed it, his face blanching as he read the words. This is it, he said, his voice low, tight. They're crossing every line. Alana clutched his arm, her voice breaking. She's just a child, Daniel, she's my baby if they hurt her. They won't, his jaw hardened, eyes burning with fury. I swear it, they want war, then they'll have it. Meanwhile, Veronica stood in her penthouse suite, phone pressed to her ear. Yes, she murmured, her tones silky. They've been rattled, keep it up. Fear is the leash that keeps people from biting back. She turned toward the window, where the city stretched below like a board game of pawns and kings. Her reflection smiled back at her, cold and flawless. "They think truth will save them," she whispered, "but truth is just a story, and I write better stories than they do." By the end of that week, 3 lives hung on a knife's edge. Alana fighting to protect the child she loved. Daniel risking his career and safety for justice. Claudia torn between truth and survival. And in the center of it all, Lily, innocent, frightened, caught in a war she never chose. Veronica's retaliation wasn't finished, it was only just beginning. And when the next strike came, it would land where it hurt most. Lily's disappearance was not immediate, but it was fast enough to break Alana's world. She had been at the courthouse that morning answering Daniel's steady questions during her testimony. Her hands shook, but her words were clear. "I never harmed Lily, I love her, she is my life." By the time she left the courtroom, Lily was gone. The police were called. Richard claimed he had taken his daughter for her safety, but when pressed, he refused to give her location. His lawyers spun excuses about temporary custody, about a dangerous environment, about protecting a child from further trauma. But Alana knew better. She knew exactly whose hand was on the strings. Veronica's. That night, Alana stormed into Daniel's office, eyes wild, tears streaking her cheeks. "They've taken her, Daniel, they've taken Lily." Daniel was already on his feet, phone pressed to his ear, demanding updates from detectives. His tie hung loose, his eyes bloodshot. "They're hiding her, Richard's money shields him, Veronica's lies cover her. But listen to me, Alana, we will get her back." Alana slammed her hands against his desk. "What if they hurt her? What if she's scared, crying for me, and I can't reach her?" Daniel gripped her shoulders firmly, grounding her. "That fear, that's exactly what Veronica wants, don't give her the satisfaction." But his own voice trembled. He knew a child was no pawn in a courtroom game, a child could break. In Richard's private estate on the outskirts of the city, Lily sat in a guest room with curtains drawn tight. A nanny hovered nearby, stiff and silent, following orders. Veronica entered without knocking. "Lily," she cooed, her voice syrup-sweet, "you'll be staying here for a while, isn't that nice, away from all the scary things at court?" Lily hugged her bear, shaking her head. "I want Alana." Veronica's smile faltered. "Alana isn't your family, I am, your father is, and families stick together." Lily's lips trembled, "But she loves me." Something sharp flickered in Veronica's eyes. She crouched low, her hand gripping the girl's chin just a little too firmly. "Do you know what happens to children who don't obey their families? They lose everything. Do you want that, Lily?" The girl whimpered, silent tears slipped down her cheeks. Veronica's smile returned, cold and triumphant. "Good, tomorrow you'll go back to court, and you'll remember who takes care of you, not Alana, us." Meanwhile, Claudia Voss was unraveling. Her loft still reeked of smoke and broken glass, her phone buzzing with anonymous threats day and night, but worse than fear was the guilt. She sat on the edge of her bed, cigarette smoke curling toward the ceiling, whispering into the darkness, "I made those bruises, I put her in this mess." When Daniel knocked at her door the next day, she almost didn't open it. "Claudia," he said firmly, stepping inside, "we need you now more than ever. Veronica has taken Lily. Your testimony isn't just evidence anymore, it's a lifeline." Claudia's hands shook as she crushed her cigarette. "You don't get it, they'll kill me if I walk back into that courtroom." Daniel's gaze softened. "They'll kill more than you if you don't. That little girl is living a nightmare because of those lies. You have the power to end it." Claudia's eyes filled with tears. She pressed her palms to her face, sobbing quietly, but beneath the sobs was a nod, a flicker of resolve. "I'll go back," she whispered. "God help me, I'll go back." In court the following morning, tension was a living thing. The jury leaned forward, restless. The prosecutor's jaw was set like stone. And then the doors opened. Lily entered. She was dressed in a pressed dress with a bow in her hair, her small hand clasped in Veronica's. Her face was pale, her lips pressed tight, but her eyes, her wide, frightened eyes, searched the room until they found Alana. "Lily," Alana whispered, rising instinctively, tears filling her eyes. The bailiff held her back. The child hesitated. For a heartbeat, hope flickered between them, and then Veronica's hand tightened around hers. Lily's shoulders hunched. She looked away. The prosecution wasted no time. "Lily," they asked gently, "can you tell the court who hurt you?" The child's lips parted, silence stretched. Her bear was gone, her mother's warmth was gone. Only Veronica's nails dug into her palm. Finally her voice cracked through the silence. "Alana." The courtroom gasped. Alana's knees buckled. Daniel caught her arm before she collapsed. "No," Alana whispered, her voice broke into pieces. "She doesn't mean that, she's scared, she's just scared." But the damage was done. Jurors exchanged uneasy looks. The prosecutor's smile curled. Veronica's hand stroked Lily's hair, a mockery of comfort. That night Alana sat in Daniel's office, her body hollow, her soul shredded. "She hates me now," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "They've turned her against me." Daniel crouched in front of her, his voice sharp, cutting through despair. "No, she doesn't hate you, she's a child under pressure no one should face. She's saying what they told her to say, that doesn't change the truth." Alana buried her face in her hands. "But the jury. We'll see through it, we'll make them." His phone buzzed, a text. He read it, his jaw tightening. It was from Claudia. "I have something, proof, meet me tonight." Daniel grabbed his coat. "Come on, if she's telling the truth this could save everything." Claudia's loft was dimly lit, the smell of smoke and turpentine thick in the air. She met them at the door, her eyes frantic. "I kept something," she whispered, ushering them inside. "I didn't mean to, I couldn't throw it away." She opened a drawer and pulled out a small plastic case. Inside, palettes of bruised paint, sponges stained with purple and yellow, and a set of photographs, not the ones submitted to court but the raw originals she had taken herself. "They're different," Claudia said, her voice trembling. "In the originals you can see the edges before I blended them. Makeup lines, clear as day. Veronica told me to crop them out before sending the rest." Daniel's hands shook as he lifted the photos. "This is it, this is the smoking gun." Alana's breath caught. For the first time in weeks, real hope surged in her chest. But then outside, tires screeched, headlights slashed through the blinds. Claudia froze. "Oh God, they found me." Daniel shoved the photos into his briefcase. "We have to go now." The first brick hit the window before he finished speaking. Glass exploded across the floor. Shouts rose outside, footsteps thundered up the stairs. Veronica's retaliation had reached its peak. And this time she wasn't just after Claudia, she was after all of them.